Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile around 3100 BCE, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and blooming lotus. The river glints under the rising sun, reeds sway in the breeze, and somewhere in the northern marshes, a man steps forward wearing a crown that no one has ever seen before. One half tall and white, the other short and red, fused into a single symbol of impossible power. In his right hand he holds a pear-shaped mace, in his left the hair of a kneeling enemy. Behind him, standards flutter with the falcon of Horus and the jackal of the underworld. This is the moment frozen forever on the Narmer Palette, a 63-centimeter slab of dark green siltstone discovered in 1898 at Hierakonpolis, the ancient city the Egyptians called Nekhen. It is not just an artifact, it is the birth certificate of pharaonic Egypt. But is it a documentary of conquest, or the world's first political advertisement? Let's walk through every inch of this masterpiece, decode its symbols, weigh the archaeology, and decide. Did Narmer truly unite Upper and Lower Egypt, or did he merely invent the story that Egypt needed to believe? Rewind 5,000 years. The Nile Valley is not a kingdom, but a corridor of rival chiefdoms. Upper Egypt stretches from the first cataract at Aswan all the way north to the apex of the delta near Memphis. Its people farm emmer wheat and barley on narrow floodplains, herd cattle and craft fine pottery painted with geometric boats and desert animals. Their leaders bury themselves in rectangular pit graves lined with mud brick, surrounded by jars of beer and oil. Lower Egypt, by contrast, is a maze of papyrus marshes and lagoons. Its villages thrive on fishing, fowling, and trade with the Levant. Their dead rest in oval graves with imported Palestinian wine jars. The two regions speak dialects of the same language family, worship overlapping gods, Horus the sky falcon, Hathor the cow of heaven, Seth the storm. But politically they are separate. Trade flows, obsidian from Ethiopia, cedar from Byblos, copper from Sinai. Yet no single ruler commands both the white-crowned south and the red-crowned north. That is, until someone decides to change the rules. Enter Narmer. We know his name from the palette itself, inscribed inside a serek, a rectangular box topped by the Horus falcon, meaning Horus Narmer. Other artifacts, a mace head, an ivory cylinder, a limestone vase, repeat the name. Later king lists, written a millennium afterward, call the first pharaoh Menes, and most scholars equate Menes with Narmer. But names are slippery in prehistory. What matters is the palette, because it is the first object to show a king wearing both crowns and claiming dominion over both lands. It is also the first to use the visual grammar that will define Egyptian art for 30 centuries. Hierarchical scale, composite perspective, divine symbolism, and the pharaoh as cosmic enforcer. The palette is shaped like a ceremonial shield, its top notch for a cord that never existed. Both sides are carved in low relief, the figures outlined with crisp, confident lines. It was probably used in temple rituals, perhaps to grind malachite or galena for painting a god statue, but its real purpose was ideological. Let's start with the recto, the side most people picture. At the very top, two serene cow heads with human faces gaze outward. These are Hathor, goddess of love, music, and royal protection. Between them, Narmer's serek floats like a banner. Below, the king strides forward, enormous, his muscles rippling under a kilt of lion tails. He wears the tall white hedget crown of Upper Egypt and holds a mace aloft. With his left hand, he grips the topknot of a kneeling enemy whose face is smashed, papyrus plants sprouting from his head, code for man of the delta. To Narmer's left, a tiny sandal-bearer carries the royal footwear, a humble reminder that even the king's feet are sacred. Above the enemy, the falcon god Horus perches on 6 papyrus stalks, clutching a rope tied to the enemy's nose. The message is brutal and brilliant. Horus, and therefore Narmer, owns Lower Egypt. At the bottom, 2 more corpses lie twisted, their limbs contorted in defeat. The entire scene is a vertical stack of triumph. Gods, king, enemies, dead. Now turn the palette over the verso. Narmer has changed crowns. He now wears the red deseret of Lower Egypt, coiled at the front like a bowling pin. He leads a procession. Behind him march standard-bearers carrying emblems of nomes or provinces, a priest with a long staff, and the sandal-bearer again. The king's scale is still gigantic. Ahead of him, 4 men hold aloft long-necked birds, perhaps a ritual gesture. Below, 10 decapitated enemies lie in 2 neat rows, their severed heads placed between their legs, eyes staring blankly. It is a chilling tableau of organized violence. At the bottom right, a walled fortress crumbles under the hooves of a raging bull, Narmer in animal form, trampling a fallen foe. The bull's tail curls like a whip, its horns lowered in unstoppable fury. Every detail reinforces the same idea. Narmer conquers, Narmer unifies, Narmer is Egypt. Let's zoom in on the symbolism. The double crown, called the Pishent centuries later, is the smoking gun. No earlier artifact shows a ruler wearing both Hejet and Desret. The palette invents the iconography of unity. The falcon dragging the Delta captive is another masterstroke. Horus, patron of kingship, literally pulls lower Egypt into submission. The papyrus plants, 6,000 blooms, scholars estimate, may tally the number of captives or simply evoke the marsh itself. The bull at the bottom echoes Mesopotamian art, where wild bulls symbolized royal might, but here it is domesticated into Egyptian ideology. Even the sandal-bearer matters. In a culture where touching the ground was profane for gods and kings, carrying the pharaoh's shoes elevates Narmer to divine status. The palette is a semiotic bomb, detonating meaning in every direction. But symbolism is not history. So what does archaeology say? Hierakonpolis, Narmer's power base, was the largest pre-dynastic center in Upper Egypt. Its main deposit yielded the palette alongside other royal treasures, the scorpion macehead, ivory labels, and ceramic masks. Massive mud brick walls enclosed elite cemeteries. Tomb Uj at Abydos, dated slightly earlier, contained hundreds of wine jars imported from the Delta, proving long-distance control. Narmer's own tombs, B17 and B18 at Abydos, are modest by later standards but contain Delta-style pottery and seals bearing his name. A clay seal from Tarkin reads King of Upper and Lower Egypt, the earliest use of the full title. Carbon-14 dates cluster around 3100 BCE, marking a sharp break. Suddenly, weights and measures standardize, writing appears on tags and vessels, and monumental architecture begins. The state is born, and Narmer's fingerprints are everywhere. Yet the palette raises red flags. It was found in a temple cache, not a battlefield. Its scenes are too clean, too symmetrical. Real wars are messy, alliances fracture, generals betray, supply lines fail. The palette shows none of that. It names no cities, no rival kings, no dates. The 10 headless corpses could be literal or could symbolize many. The bull smashing a fortress might commemorate a single siege or serve as generic propaganda. Later pharaohs, Amenhotep III, Ramses II, routinely inflated body counts and invented victories. Why should Narmer be different? Some Egyptologists, like Toby Wilkinson, see the palette as evidence of genuine conquest. Others, like David O'Connor, argue unification was gradual, driven by trade and ideology, with Narmer as the culminator, not the initiator. The truth likely lies in between. Consider the process of unification. Before Narmer, 3 proto-kingdoms dominated: Hierakonpolis in the south, Naqada in the center, and a Delta confederacy centered on Budo. Palette-style maces and ceremonial knives appear across all 3 regions, suggesting shared elite culture. Narmer may have married a northern princess. His queen Neithhotep bears a Delta name, or forged trade monopolies on copper and gold. Military campaigns probably targeted key strongholds. The palette's walled city could be Budo or a generic symbol. Once the Delta submitted, Narmer relocated his administrative capital to Memphis, strategically placed where the 2 lands meet. The palette, then, compresses decades of diplomacy, skirmishes, and economic leverage into a single triumphant image. Artistically, the palette is revolutionary. Its use of registers, horizontal bands separating scenes, becomes standard. Composite perspective, heads in profile, torsos frontal, legs side-on, freezes motion into eternal clarity. Hierarchical scale, where size equals status, makes Narmer a colossus. These conventions are not accidents, they are ideology made visible. The pharaoh must appear larger than life because he is larger than life. Mediator between gods and men, guarantor of Ma'at, the cosmic order. By crushing enemies, Narmer banishes Isfet, chaos, and births civilization. The palette is theology as much as politics. Compare it to later propaganda. Thutmose III at Karnak lists 119 conquered cities. Ramses II at Kadesh claims victory in a draw. Both use the same visual vocabulary: smiting scenes, bound captives, divine endorsement. The Narmer Palette is the prototype. Its influence extends beyond Egypt. Nubian kings copy the smiting pose. Hittite reliefs borrow the bull motif. Even modern leaders echo it. Think of Saddam Hussein's Victory Arch with crossed swords, or North Korean murals of Kim Il-sung towering over tanks. Propaganda is timeless. The palette simply perfected it early. But let's not dismiss it as mere spin. The palette's claims align with material evidence. Delta pottery in Narmer's tomb proves northern control. The sudden appearance of royal annals, ivory labels recording year of smiting the north, suggests real campaigns. A limestone mace head from Hierakonpolis shows captives with Delta hairstyles. Unification required force, and Narmer delivered. The palette exaggerates, yes, but exaggeration implies a kernel of truth. Without victories, there is no story to inflate. Step back and consider the bigger picture. Egypt's unification was not just political, it was cultural. The palette fuses southern and northern iconography, the white crown with the red, the falcon with the papyrus, the bull with the fortress. It creates a new visual language for a new reality. Memphis becomes the balance of the two lands, its very name a political statement. The double crown enters mythology. Horus and Seth, once rivals, reconcile in the pharaoh's headgear. The palette is the moment Egypt invents itself. Now imagine the palette in its original context. Torchlight flickers across the green stone in Hierakonpolis's temple. Priests anoint it with oil, chant hymns to Horus, and grind malachite into the central depression. Nobles from conquered towns watch, awed and afraid. The message is clear: resist and end up like the 10 headless corpses, submit and share in the new order. The palette is not just art, it is psychological warfare. It turns a warlord into a god-king, a regional chief into the founder of eternity. Centuries later, scribes compiling king lists place means /Narmer at the top. The Palermo stone, a 5th dynasty annals fragment, records his reign alongside mythical predecessors. Manetho, the Ptolemaic historian, credits Menes with founding Memphis and diverting the Nile, a legend but one rooted in Narmer's real achievements. The palette's myth becomes history because Egypt needs a founding father. Without Narmer, there is no Ramses, no Tutankhamun, no Cleopatra. The first dynasty's 30 kings all trace their legitimacy to that double-crowned silhouette. So propaganda or proof? The answer is both, braided together like the red and white crowns. The Narmer palette is proof that a ruler named Narmer existed around 3100 BCE, controlled both Upper and Lower Egypt, and used military force to consolidate power. Archaeology, tombs, seals, standardized weights, confirms the state's sudden centralization. But it is also propaganda of the highest order, a carefully staged narrative that turns messy politics into divine destiny. Narmer likely fought battles, negotiated marriages, monopolized trade, and intimidated rivals. The palette distills all of that into one perfect image: the king, the mace, the crown, the enemy at his feet. As the Nile floods and recedes, as dynasties rise and fall, the palette endures. It is displayed today in the Cairo Museum, under soft lights behind glass. Tourists snap photos, scholars argue, and the green stone still gleams. It whispers the same message it did 5,000 years ago. Egypt is one, the pharaoh is eternal, and the story began with a man named Narmer. Whether he smashed every fortress or simply outlasted his enemies, he gave Egypt its origin myth. And in the end, the myth is what matters, because a nation is not just land and people, it is a story we agree to believe. Narmer told the first chapter, and the palette made it unforgettable.